Hey fish friends, Zenzo with Tazawa Tanks, back with another video. So in today's video I'm going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to talk about water changes and I'm going to talk about testing water. Why do we change water? And it's, for some people it seems pretty basic. You want to just make sure that you have good water quality for your fish and or plants and other inhabitants of your tank. But I'll talk a little bit about that. So one of the main reasons is the removal of pollutants, your nitrogenous pollutants, and that's going to be your ammonia, your nitrites, your nitrates. Those are the pollutants in the water that are derived from waste that can be very harmful to your fish. Ammonia is very toxic, very harmful to fish, as is nitrites, and then to a lesser extent nitrates. Nitrates can be tolerated at much more elevated levels, but still they will have an effect on your fish. Another reason why we do it is water clarity. If you have a lot of tannins in the water, or if you have a lot of debris floating around in the water, things like that, it's not going to be clear, it's going to be hard to view, and maybe you're not going to enjoy it as much. So that's another reason why we do water changes. Obviously removal of debris or detritus, so that's going to be like the remnants of the fish waste or other animals waste. If you have plants, it might be broken down plant material. It can be leftover food or uneaten food, things like that. The other reason, and this is probably one that you don't think about as much and it doesn't come up very often, and that's the reintroducing of the elements and minerals back into the tanks. When you add water to the tank, you are adding fresh water, so in that water there are trace elements of minerals and things like that. Those are actually absorbed by the fish, so they need those minerals in order to thrive, as do the plants that you have. So for example, if you are keeping reef tanks and you're using RODI water, or if you're doing discus and you're using RODI water, a lot of you are adding elements and minerals back into the water that you're adding back into the tank, because you know that your fish and your invertebrates and things like that, they need those trace elements. So if you leave the water alone, over a period of time, those minerals are removed from the water, and by doing a water change, you're reintroducing those back in. Here in my illustration, you can see, and I'm not the greatest artist, so I apologize. At least I can draw straight lines with a ruler. But here's an aquarium, and very simple. We're feeding the fish is eating, the fish is pooping, the poop is broken down, and I'm not going to go through the nitrogen cycle in this video, but the poop is broken down. It's sucked up into the filter, or the byproduct of that is sucked up into the filter, and also by the plants. The plant and the filter are taking those pollutants, and they are managing them, converting them to nitrates, or absorbing the nitrates in the case of plants, and helping the water quality. But depending on the fish load, depending on other animals in the tank, depending on the frequency of your water changes, your plants and your filter may not be able to handle all of that bioload, and that's why we need to do water changes. So even though we are removing the ammonia and nitrites from the water with the beneficial bacteria, and we're removing nitrates with the plants, you're still going to have the levels increase over a period of time. So that's why we do a water change. So we know why we do water changes. Why do we test the water? So some people might just say, hey, I know I need to do water changes, so I'm going to change my water every week, or twice a week, or every other day, or whatever it may be. And in some cases that might be okay, and I will be honest and tell you that I don't test my water all of the time. I'll just kind of do spot checks here and there. For one, I just don't want to test 30 tanks every week, but also because I've been doing it so long, and because I know kind of the levels of where some of my tanks are, I know that, okay, if I do a water change once a week on this tank, the parts per million on nitrates is going to be right around 20 parts per million. If I let it go for 2 weeks, I know that it's going to get to be about 30 parts per million. So I know that. But if I didn't know that, if it was a customer's tank or a new tank that I'm servicing, I am going to test. So why do we test? And it's pretty simple. You want to ensure that you have the right water parameters for your fish and plants and other invertebrates that you might have in the tank. So that includes your pH level and things like that, water hardness, the nitrate level, and I talked about plant health. The other reason, which is probably well, it's not probably, it is a really important reason, and that's not to be wasteful. So, water is a resource, right? So it's a natural resource that we don't want to waste. In some parts of the country, here in the United States, like California, for example, we've had bouts of time or periods of time when we were under a drought. I know that happens in other parts of the U.S. and other parts of the country and the world as well. I'm sure there are times when water might be scarce or just something that you don't want to waste. It's also wasteful for time. So, if I don't have to clean 30 tanks a week, I'm not going to. If I know that I have a tank that does just fine, one of my planted tanks upstairs doesn't need weekly water changes. In fact, it's probably not good because then I'm taking away too many nitrates for the plants. So I'll leave that alone for a couple weeks or so. Where other tanks, they might need to be serviced twice a week, like my large African cichlid tanks. That's an example, because I'm overstocking. So obviously, time is finite, so you don't want to waste it. There's a lot of other things that we could be doing, whether it be playing around with other fish, or building fish rooms, or spending time with our families, or going to the gym. Whatever it is, you don't want to waste time cleaning tanks if you don't need to and doing water changes. And also, it's wasteful of money. So not only is water a resource that is limited, but it costs money in most cases. If you get free water, then lucky you. If you have to pay for water like most people, then you don't want to waste water if you're paying for it by the gallon. And then also, if you're having to add items back into the tank after you do a water change or during a water change, that can get costly as well. So if you're using a dechlorinator, which I hope or most of you are, unless you're on some type of well water, if you're using a dechlorinator, some of those can be pretty expensive. And if you're doing water changes every week and you don't need to be, you're just kind of throwing your water conditioner away. If you're adding buffers and salts and other chemicals into your tank to get optimal water parameters for your fish or plants and fertilizers, things like that, if you're adding those into the tank after every water change and it's not necessary, then you're just kind of dumping that product down the drain essentially. So that's why we test water. So this is just kind of a recap of what I'm sure a lot of you are aware of already, but I do have a lot of people that are watching my videos that are new to fish keeping, new to the hobby, and may not understand exactly why we do water changes and why we test for water. I am going to talk real briefly about water testing. There are a lot of different ways of testing water. There are some really fancy kits that are digital kits where you can put a probe into the water and it can give you back very detailed readings. Those are expensive. Those are not what most people are going to carry. So there are really, for the most of us, there are two types of test devices that I would recommend you utilizing. One of those would be the test strip. So this is something that's very common. You see this almost everywhere. Every fish store carries these. You can get them online. You can buy them at your local fish store. You can buy them at the big box stores. They're really, really easy to use. All you do is you take out the little test strip, follow the instructions, you put it in the water according to the instructions for that particular strip, and then at the appropriate amount of time, you hold it up against the chart, and that will tell you what that parameter is. So my experience is these test kits work well. That is one way. Nothing wrong with these. If you get, I like the Tetra brand, but there are some other brands out there. And I think that would be a great way to test your water, and these are really inexpensive. Another thing that you probably hear a lot about, and that's a master test kit. I have a lot of these. I think I have 4 or 5 kits. These are more costly than your test strips, but they do last a long time. Really good if you know how to use it, and if you read the instructions. So I am going to say a lot of people don't have success with these because they either are rushed or they don't feel like going through the process of following the instructions and what you have to do to get this to work right. So in that case, I would say use the test strips. They're great. Nothing wrong with that. You'll get these glass little vials with the plastic cap on it. You'll get some instructions, which I don't have with me, but don't throw the instructions away. Keep them, read them. I have a couple sets laying around. This is your chart, which will show you the different areas where this measures. And then you're going to get these bottles. One thing to notice before you buy, or to pay attention before you buy, is that they have an expiration date. This is very important. So you want to make sure that when you read the package and you look at the package that you're buying, that you can see the expiration date, the lot number, the expiration date for the little bottles in there. So as an example, this pH test kit expires in September of 2018. So I've got like 10 months left to be able to use this one. These ones are February 2020, so I've got plenty of time to use these up. And the reason why the dates are all mixed up is because I have so many kits that I think they got mixed up over time. These are good. Just make sure that you read the date and you buy one that isn't close to expiring, because there's a lot of usage out of one of these kits. So you're going to be able to test water for a couple of years through one of these kits. Very important, another point, and when I said read the instructions, and that is shaking the bottles. So as an example, this is the nitrate bottle 2, and this one needs to get shaken a lot. So it'll say shake it for like 30 seconds, I think the instruction reads. Don't shake it like this, and don't say, that's good. When it says shake, you have to shake this thing like it owes you money. So you really want to vigorously, that probably looks pretty bad, right? But you want to really vigorously shake this thing and shake it for a long time, because there are little crystals in there that need to get broken up. And you'll notice when you squeeze some of these drip out really quickly. Some of them take a little bit more force in squeezing, and that's because there's a little bit more viscosity. It's a thicker fluid, and or there's stuff in there that needs to get broken up. So, but they're really good. And then once you test your water, once you add the drops, the appropriate drops to follow the instructions, then you hold up your glass vial up against the chart, and that will tell you your readings. Another point that I would say is make sure that the lighting that you're using is accurate. Not accurate, but more natural. So like a bright fluorescent light, I find doesn't work very well. I like a little kind of a warmer light, like a natural light bulb, or just being out in just ambient light from your room. And then the other thing that I find is holding it away is not good, because then you'll get light refracting, and then you'll get some you might catch a color from the chart. So I like to hold it up right against, kind of in that white spot between the columns, and hold it right there. Obviously obviously there's nothing in here, so you're not going to see anything. But let's say that this were testing pH, and it would be kind of a mild green. It would be right around 7, and then I would be able to match those up. So reading them takes a little bit of work to make sure that you're getting an accurate reading. So you might need to play around with it for a while. The last thing I'm going to add before I stop talking is test your tap water. So it's great to test your tank water so that you know what's going on, but it's nice to know where you're starting from. So testing your tap water is very important. It might be where your water already has some elements in there, some nitrates or ammonia and things like that in your tap water. It's also good to know your pH level, because that is going to kind of give you an indication on how easy or how difficult it might be in keeping certain types of fish and things like that. I do want to add that I will be at the Aquatic Experience in Chicago the first weekend of November, so that's right around the corner. If you're anywhere close, if you're 3 or 4 hours away, I highly recommend coming by and checking it out. I'll be there on Saturday, only on Saturday, as I've got some other obligations on the other days. But I will have a stack of stickers with me as well. So if you see me, say hello, grab me, and take a picture with me, and I'll give you a sticker if I have any, and love to say hello. That's all I had for now. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.